As I was running toward them, my knees grew weaker, trembling with fear. Was it him? Was it her? Or someone else? Were they on the ground or about to fall? The uncertainty of what I was running toward was driving me mad. They fight without mercy, she had said. They fight for victory. But you fight for the ones you love. That means you have more to lose. And the more you fear losing, the more ruthlessly they'll fight. Shouldn't we fight for victory too? I had asked. And then, in her eyes, I had seen that rare, weary expression. When you look back on what you've done for victory, you might regret it. And by the time you realize what part of yourself you've lost, it'll be too late. But the things you do to protect the ones you love, those are rarely the things you regret. But what if you fail to protect them? It struck me then that I had never asked her that question. That's the problem with wars fought in the shadows, Lacey, she continued. Wars belong on battlefields, but when shadows cover everything, the war spreads in ways you can't predict. It reaches your doorstep, slips into your bed. There are no rules, and you can't foresee where the fire will come from, or worst of all, who it will take. But I should have foreseen it. When I finally came upon that horrific scene, my breath caught, my knees barely able to hold me up. Only then the voice in my mind screamed the truth at me. Of course, how many more corpses did I need to see to accept it? Of course, it would always be the innocent who suffered the most. Chapter 1. The World You Know, 7 months earlier. The first Lightbearer, Celeste Moreau, infamous for her soft spot for dark magic, is said to have passed away peacefully in her home. Listening to Mr. Klein's lecture, I was boiling with rage, yet my gaze kept flickering between the classroom door and my desk, and I managed to keep my mouth shut. When had history lessons ever been reliable anyway? How fair is it that a lady of light, ironically known as the Dark Queen, could die peacefully after slaughtering so many innocents? Especially when the one delivering the lesson was a prejudiced sorcerer. Clenching my hands together, I focused on the clock hanging above the blackboard. Class was almost over. Watching the seconds tick by, I tried to ignore Mr. Klein, who clearly couldn't keep his opinions to himself. I knew that if I opened my mouth, trouble would follow, so I had to cover my ears before anything else. I learned that the hard way. May the sacrifice of the Lightbearer be with us, right? He snorted. The woman he was mocking, Lady Moreau, was not only the first Lightbearer, but also a hero. However, all that mattered to this sorcerer was that Lady Moreau came from a lineage of witches. Thankfully, the loud, jarring bell rang. I shoved my book into my bag and headed for the door. Each step I took down the hallway, further away from the classroom, made me feel lighter. Mr. Klein's biased words still echoed in my ears, so I quickened my pace, weaving through the growing throng of students as if trying to escape the thoughts invading my mind. I had only taken a few more steps when I noticed those curly locks I'd recognize anywhere, though a bit too late, when I bumped into Angel's small frame. I caught her by the arms. We managed to steady ourselves before either of us fell over. "Where did you come from?" I laughed, slipping an arm around her shoulder as I noticed the crowd closing in around us and continued walking. "You were the one walking like you were flying," she said, adjusting her bag and quickening her pace to keep up with me. "Yeah, sorry," I replied. "I was just in a rush because I was so bored in class." Bored wasn't the right word. But sharing my less-than-polite thoughts about Mr. Klein with a 9-year-old, or anyone else for that matter, would have been incredibly foolish. In the hallways packed with creatures from all 5 councils, even the walls might have ears. Almost as if to prove my point, I met the gaze of a girl from the Wolf Council. Her piercing stare made me turn my head away uneasily, and I continued walking. Angel merely shrugged in response, keeping her eyes on the floor as if trying to make her small body even smaller. The dimly lit corridor of the school was bustling with life. On the last day of the week, everyone was rushing to get somewhere fun. We finally reached the stairs after slipping through the throng of hurried bodies. Descending to the ground floor, we passed through the towering doors of the main building and stepped into the fresh air. The breeze carried the refreshing scent of the hidden forest surrounding the castle and blew gently. But here at the peak of the mountain, gentle was a relative term. As the sun disappeared behind the clouds, The courtyard was bathed in gray. High walls surrounded us on all sides, and behind their battlements, countless towers reached for the sky, their pointed rooftops shrouded by dark clouds. Moreau Academy was said to have the most impressive castle among the 5 major schools for outcasts. But the gloomy weather, combined with the ever-increasing number of watchtowers looming over us, often felt suffocating. When we reached the dormitory, Angel sprinted toward the building and bounded up the stairs 2 at a time. The thinning crowd seemed to lift her spirits. Watching her energetic movements, I felt the ache in my legs and the weariness in my body, struggling not to grumble out loud. Halfway up the stairs, my phone buzzed. Grateful for an excuse to pause, I checked the message and rolled my eyes. I climbed the rest of the way and caught up with Angel, who was waiting for me at the top. "What happened?" she asked. "I promised Anne we'd go out today, but I completely forgot," she giggled. As we entered the common room through the dormitory doors, I asked, "What's so funny?" Her giggling continued, and she shrugged. "You force me to be social, and Anne forces you." Stopping at the hallway leading to the dormitory's right wing, I grumbled as I scanned the entrance and staircase, trying to spot Anne. "That's not funny. I do have friends, and I am social." "Name one friend other than Anne," she teased, clearly enjoying herself. The smug grin on her face said it all. Anne and I often treated her like her parents, and now that she had the chance to turn the tables on me, she was reveling in it. Just as I opened my mouth, she cut me off, answering as if she had read my mind. "I'm half your age, Lacey," she said with a chuckle. "I don't count. Half my age," I pouted. The realization that I was indeed more than double her age dampened my mood. But I continued searching for an answer to her question. I almost mentioned my sister, but I knew the moment I said Mia's name, she'd tease me about it all weekend. That crafty little witch was probably waiting for that exact opportunity. "Speaking of being social," I said, doing what any parent figure would do, changing the subject to avoid scrutiny. "There was that girl in your class. What was her name, Tony?" "Tori," she corrected with an exaggerated eye roll. "And if you hadn't drilled her name into my head, I wouldn't even remember it. Why do you always bring her up when we talk about friends?" "Because all the other kids are annoying," I said matter-of-factly. That made her burst into laughter. Smiling to myself, I continued scanning the room. Students lounged on sofas scattered casually around the common area, between the dormitory's 2 wings, deep in conversation. I was just going to wait for Anne to arrive in the corner when noises from the corridor behind us caught my attention. Before I could turn toward the laughter and shouting, Angel yelped and bumped into me. The air around us turned icy, and a sudden mist clouded my vision. To my annoyance, I realized we'd wandered into the path of a couple of sorcerers fooling around with magic. But as soon as I saw who was responsible, I closed my mouth, swallowing the curses I was about to let out. The magic that reached us had to belong to Lexi. Her eyes still glowed unnaturally blue from her magic, and vapor trailed from her hands. Tossing her long, straight hair over her shoulder, she pulled her power back, her glowing eyes returning to their usual pale blue. Behind her, her twin brother Cole stood silently, sharing the same detached look in his eyes. The gray twins were as icy as the frost they conjured, their sharp features and almost white blonde hair making it impossible not to shiver. Lexi, unlike Cole, studied me with interest, clearly waiting for a reaction. I was just as curious about how this would unfold. My temper burned for a chance to put them in their place, but my common sense kept me at bay. Dealing with them had never ended well. No matter how justified my anger was, I never came out on top. The twins were untouchable, both as sorcerers and as the headmaster's cherished wards. I didn't have the energy to deal with them, nor did I intend to start a fight with Angel by my side. So I forced myself not to forget the punishments I'd endured in the past. I pictured the guardians grabbing me by the arm and dragging me to the tower, not caring whether I was right or wrong, but only that I was a witch. I reminded myself again and again of the bruises on my body, and the times I tried to hide them from my friends. This school year, I wouldn't go through the same things again. Angel's whimper and the way she pressed closer to me pulled me from my thoughts. When I noticed how tightly she was clutching one hand with the other, I leaned toward her in panic. "What happened, Angel? "Is it your hand?" When she reluctantly let me see it, ignoring my anger became easy. The ice covering her hand had begun to melt, but the damage was already done. My healer's instincts rushed forward without hesitation. When I called on my aura, the magic inside me, my oldest friend, answered with longing eagerness, rising swiftly to the surface. When I opened my eyes, my aura shimmered in crimson waves in my hand, glowing like a play of light as I held Angel's injured hand. As it brushed her damaged skin, her stiff hand slowly relaxed, and her discolored flesh returned to its natural, warm olive tone. Acting quickly had worked. Her hand looked better already. Meanwhile, I couldn't help but savor the gentle warmth of the crimson waves still wrapped around my wrists. I could never bear Angel getting hurt, but I couldn't deny how much I had missed my aura either. I felt how my magic that was forbidden to me still danced in perfect harmony with my soul. I relished the tingling in my eyes from its shifting colors, the flutter in the center of my chest, the rush of excitement wrapping around my body, and the playful tickle left on my skin by the glowing red light. My aura was so much more than a simple spell or a mere form of energy. It was a soothing song carried on a whisper. It was a terrifying tale sparkling in my eyes, enough to frighten anyone standing before me. It was power itself, wrapping my skin, a breathtaking force, a warm touch sealing wounds, and "How dare you use hellfire?" And here's a handful of sorcerers who would never understand it. Before turning to them, my aura surged within me in furious waves, ready to unleash all its terror to protect its oldest friend. But I took a deep breath and drew it back. The crimson streams coiled around my fingers scattered and faded, and the glow in my eyes quietly ebbed away. I glanced at Angel's healed hand, then at her wide, panicked eyes. As I stood, I draped an arm around her shoulders, gently pulling her behind me, in such a way that she never even realized it was protective. By now it was a motion I had mastered without even noticing. I had learned how to hide my tension, to shield her from the danger that might break out around us at any second. "It's fine, sweetheart," I said with a smile. "I just healed your wound. There's no harm in using magic for this kind of thing. You know." Then I turned my gaze to the twin sorcerers who were always looking for an excuse to bully us. I mean, when it comes to protecting ourselves. I was speaking to Angel, but my words were for the Grey siblings, and I couldn't stop my voice from sharpening. That's when I noticed Kylie standing just behind them. The moment she saw what happened, she rushed to join the twins. Well, mostly Cole. The poor girl could never hide her feelings for him, but they were never returned. She tucked her fiery hair behind her ear and crossed her arms, staring at me. She wasn't exactly my favorite freak on the non-existent continent, but usually, she didn't stir the urge in me to rip someone's throat out either. Your magic only brings death. Speaking of throats. Lexi's hateful eyes locked on me, and I matched her glare with burning rage of my own. Her words sent suffocating heat flooding my body, my heartbeat quickening with it. 2 ice-brained sorcerers, and a vampire at their side. They looked like some damned prophecy of trouble, and yet I couldn't make myself pull Angel away. On the contrary, my fists clenched, my breath flared through my nose, and I refused to hold back my anger. What would you know of healing or protecting? She spat. My failure to control my temper was a defining trait of who I was. Unchangeable, yes. But at that moment, I was burning. My rage blinded me to the fact that Lexi was acting just as irrationally as me. Her words weren't surprising, nor were they new. They were the purest expression of the hatred between us, an echo of the centuries-old feud between witches and sorcerers. Witchcraft is born from hell and belongs there, but sorcerers possess the pure power of the elements, making them also pure. The thought only infuriated me further, and I squandered my last chance to walk away. "You're right, Lexi," I said with a sly smile. "If you were on her shoes, healing wouldn't be the first spell I'd go for." Cole turned his attention to us, intrigued, his sharp features tense as he waited for his sister's reaction. Lexi's eyes shifted into an unnatural blue, the sign she was about to use her element. I should have realized it, but I hesitated. Because as irrational as things had become, it never once crossed my mind that she would actually attack me. It would be ridiculous. But there she was, lunged, steam curling from her frozen hands. My shock fell away just in time for me to call on my aura. The burning crimson in my eyes reflected in Lexi's unreal blue glow. I raised my hand that was wrapped with my aura to block her hand, ice crusting her skin, the sharp cold seeping into me. But before her blow could land, someone darted between us. Shoving her hand away with astonishing speed, a wave of thick, chestnut curls swung in front of me, spilling down on a pale, flawless back barely covered by a crimson blouse. Those reflexes, that raw, dangerous growl. I knew them too well. My vampire guardian had arrived. Anne had stepped between us, and Cole quickly seized his twin by the arm, yanking her away. His muscles twitched against his shirt as he restrained her, his face twisted with shock and anger, but not directed at us. No, he was just as furious with his sister's recklessness as I was. Kylie, meanwhile, backed away step by step, clearly wanting nothing to do with the fight. Unlike the Greys, a vampire couldn't afford to take such risks as sorcerers could, because punishment was a possibility for them. For witches, on the other hand, it was a certainty. But Anne? She tends to forget such things easily, or simply doesn't care. Congratulations. Lexi, she said cheerfully, before turning to Cole. And you too, Cole. I hear you've both joined a special Vatrix training program. That makes us colleagues. That certainly explained Lexi's newfound overconfidence. Still, the thought of the Grey twins training for a profession meant to enforce justice, patrolling around like some freak police, made my skin crawl. So what? Cole snapped back. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a guardian in the corridor leading to the other wing of the dorm. The middle-aged man stared at me with a blank expression. It took me a moment to realize his unsettling gaze was simply because I was a witch. He was probably waiting for me to slip up, eager for an excuse to punish me. But when our eyes met again, he surprised me, and he turned away and strode calmly through the dorm doors. Anne's mocking voice pulled me back to them. I'm just surprised, she said. I don't remember seeing you at the interviews, but I suppose Mommy took care of that for you. Her vampire senses must have caught the fading scent of my anger and tension, because she shifted aside, letting me see Lexi's twitching eyes. Cole, on the other hand, looked utterly indifferent. There's one more thing I'm curious about, though, Anne went on, her gaze flicking back to Lexi. Playing with ice might suit your image, but why not use your master element? I couldn't tell whether Anne was trying to stop a fight or start one. But either way, I would have given anything to see it. I guess being a soulless bitch makes it harder for you to use the spirit. With Anne's final point, my lips curled into a sly smile, but the tiny fingers gently wrapping around my hand wiped the smile off my face, and I remembered that Angel was still behind me. I closed my eyes with frustration and exhaustion, then wrapped my arms around her shoulders and pulled her towards me. I was so close to starting a fight with her right there beside me, and secretly I had wanted it. I couldn't believe I had been so irresponsible. No matter how difficult it might be, as long as she was there, I would always find a way to avoid trouble. What if Anne hadn't shown up? What is wrong with me? Eventually, I started acting sensibly and touched Anne's arm to warn her. Seeing Cole pulling Lexi back surprised me, but it also comforted me. However, Lexi wouldn't be at ease until she had the last word. Forget everything you know, she hissed with hatred. I was still struggling to understand her actions. Cole pulled her toward him and gave her a stern warning. But his efforts were in vain as Lexi shot me a deadly glare. When you wake up one morning, you won't recognize the world you once knew, she said, pointing her finger at me. You, Lacey, you and all the witches. None of you will find a place for yourselves in that new world. I paused for a moment, unsure whether to be glad she used my name. Her words almost made me laugh. I gently pushed Angel toward the stairs and pursed my lips. That doesn't sound too bad, Lexi, I said. I can't even recognize the one we have anyway.